Late one night at Hogwarts, a young Harry Potter crept through dark corridors under his invisibility cloak. By chance, he slipped into an abandoned classroom and found himself face to face with this very mirror. Taller than any man, framed in ornate gold, it stood on clawed feet, and bore a curious inscription around its arch. Harry couldn't read the strange words. Erised stra eru oytube kafru oyt on Wolsey, but as he edged closer, something magical happened. Instead of seeing a small, skinny 11-year-old boy reflected back, Harry gasped in disbelief. There were people standing behind him in the mirror's silver mist. A woman with his bright green eyes and a kind smile. A man with untidy black hair and glasses just like his. They rested their hands on Harry's shoulders. They smiled with love and pride. Harry was looking at his family, his parents, for the first time in his life. His heart pounded. He pressed his palms flat against the glass, as if he might fall through it, and embrace them. A powerful ache bloomed in his chest, half joy and half terrible sadness. The mother and father he longed for were right there, looking so real and alive, yet separated from him by a mere pane of enchanted glass. That night, Harry sat before the mirror for what felt like hours, basking in the warmth of that impossible reunion. When at last he left, his mind was racing. He had to tell his best friend Ron about this marvel. The next night, Harry brought Ron Weasley to see the Mirror of Erised, eager to share the wonder. But when Ron peered into the shimmering glass, he did not see Harry's parents at all. He saw himself, but taller, older, triumphant. In the reflection, Ron was adorned with a shining badge as Hogwarts head boy, and held the gleaming Quidditch cup. Applause rang in his ears. He was the school champion, finally standing out from the shadow of his many older brothers. Ron's freckled face flushed with delight at this vision of his deepest ambition fulfilled. It was as if the mirror whispered to each boy a different secret, tailor-made for their heart's desire. Harry realized then that this was no ordinary mirror. It showed neither truth nor present reality, but something deeply personal and beguiling. Night after night, the pull of those visions grew stronger. Harry began sneaking back to the unused classroom whenever he could, hunger for the mirror's comfort overtaking him. By the third night, he was utterly spellbound, addicted to the beautiful lie living in the glass. He would skip meals, ignore sleep, all for another glimpse of his lost parents smiling at him. The world outside the mirror fell away. All that mattered was the dream within it. On that third night, as Harry sat on the cold floor before the mirror, a gentle voice broke the silence. "So?" came the calm, familiar tone of Professor Albus Dumbledore. "Back again, Harry?" Startled, Harry jumped to his feet. He hadn't heard the headmaster approaching in the darkness. Dumbledore's eyes, usually twinkling with mischief, were grave as he regarded the Mirror of Erised. He asked Harry quietly if he knew what the mirror was and what it showed. Harry, embarrassed, could only shake his head. With a sigh, Dumbledore explained the truth. This enchanted mirror reveals nothing more or less than the deepest, most desperate desire of our hearts. Harry's cheeks burned as the headmaster gently described what Harry had been seeing, a vision of his family, because Harry, who had never known his parents, yearned for them more than anything. And Ron, always overshadowed, saw himself standing alone as the best of all his brothers. Dumbledore's voice was kind, but his words bore a dire warning. "However," he said, "this mirror will give us neither knowledge nor truth. It does not tell the future, nor teach any lesson outright. It shows your heart's desire, and that is all. And that," he warned, "is where the danger lies." Dumbledore's eyes seemed to pierce Harry's very thoughts as he continued in a somber tone. Men have wasted away before it, entranced by what they have seen, or been driven mad, not knowing if what it shows is real or even possible. Harry shivered, picturing some poor soul crouched in front of this mirror, unable to break away, slowly losing their sanity for a wish that would never come true. It was a frightening thought, that even a noble longing could become a lethal obsession. Gently the old wizard laid a hand on Harry's shoulder and gave perhaps the most important advice of all. It does not do to dwell on dreams and forget to live. Harry realized with a jolt that he had indeed been dwelling in a dream, letting the real world, his life, his friends, his present, slip by each time he lost himself in the mirror's illusion. At Dumbledore's insistence, Harry reluctantly tore his eyes from the glass. The headmaster promised that the Mirror of Erised would be moved the next day to a new hiding place. "If you ever do run across it again," Dumbledore said softly, "you will now be prepared." In other words, Harry had learned what he needed to. The mirror's gift was a false happiness, one he must not chase. Harry left the classroom, cast in deep thought, as Dumbledore stayed behind, alone with the mirror. The heavy door creaked shut, leaving the headmaster and the silent mirror in darkness. What did Dumbledore himself see in the Mirror of Erised that night? The wise old wizard had dodged Harry's personal question with a whimsical answer, claiming he beheld himself holding a pair of thick woolen socks. It was Dumbledore's gentle way of declining to reveal his own heart's secret. In truth, Albus Dumbledore's desires were as haunted and desperate as any man's. Decades ago in his youth, Dumbledore had suffered a terrible family tragedy. His younger sister, Ariana, had been accidentally killed during a magical duel gone wrong. A duel involving Albus, his brother Aberforth, and Albus's then close friend Gellert Grindelwald. The guilt of Ariana's death weighed on Dumbledore for the rest of his life. He also lost his mother and father in his childhood, to violence and imprisonment. So it is said that when Dumbledore gazed into the Mirror of Erised, he did not see himself with simple socks. He saw his family, whole and unharmed, gathered together joyfully. In the mirror's depths, his beloved sister lived, his mother and father smiled proudly, and the pain of the past was undone. That was the dream that Albus Dumbledore most desperately longed for. To apologize to his family, to know they were happy and forgiven. This poignant longing shaped Dumbledore into the man he became. He knew too well that no magic could ever bring back the dead or erase regrets. In fact, many years later, his yearning to see his lost family almost proved his undoing. Upon discovering a cursed magical ring containing the legendary Resurrection Stone, Dumbledore could not resist. For one fleeting moment, overcome by desire, he put that ring on his finger, hoping the stone inside it might grant him a glimpse of Ariana and his parents. That choice was a terrible mistake. The ring was a dark object, and its curse swiftly withered Dumbledore's hand and doomed him to a slow, impending death. Though immensely wise, even Dumbledore was not immune to the seductive pull of a dream offered by magic. He survived just long enough to pass on his knowledge and guide Harry. But the lesson was seared into his soul. Chasing an impossible desire, even with the aid of the most powerful magic, can lead to ruin. It's no wonder, then, that Dumbledore took such care to hide the Mirror of Erised. He understood that gazing too long at untouchable dreams could be as dangerous as any cursed spell. After catching Harry at the mirror, Dumbledore quietly removed the enchanted glass from the classroom. In fact, nobody truly knows where the Mirror of Erised originally came from. It is a very old object, older than anyone at Hogwarts. Some believe it might have been brought to the castle by a long-ago professor who stumbled upon it during their travels. Perhaps it had languished for generations in a dusty corner of the school, waiting for curious eyes to find it. Was it created with good intentions, as a tool for self-reflection? Or was it forged as a trap, a cruel joke by some trickster wizard to ensnare the unwary? No one can say. The very name Erised is desire spelled backwards, as if the word itself were reflected in a mirror. It hints that whoever fashioned the mirror understood its purpose well, to show a person's desire reversed back at them. Whether that purpose was meant to teach wisdom or to beguile and torment, the effect is the same. The mirror tempts. It whispers, and if you listen too long it pulls you in. Even after Dumbledore hid the mirror, its story wasn't over. A few months later, Hogwarts was threatened by Lord Voldemort's search for the Philosopher's Stone, a ruby-red elixir that could grant immortality. In a brilliant move, Dumbledore decided to use the Mirror of Erised as the final safeguard for the stone. He brought the mirror out of hiding, and placed it deep in the bowels of the castle, behind countless other defenses. By Dumbledore's design, the mirror would now test the heart of anyone who came seeking the stone. Only a person pure of intention, someone who wanted to find the stone but not use its power, would be able to actually obtain it from the mirror's reflection. The unworthy would see only their own greedy fantasies and gain nothing but frustration. And so it was that Harry Potter encountered the Mirror of Erised one last time that year, in the final chamber guarding the stone. Harry stood before the great mirror once again, trembling but determined. Behind him loomed Professor Quirrell, who was secretly possessed by Voldemort and desperate to seize the stone for dark ends. Quirrell forced Harry at one point to look into the mirror and tell him what he saw. Heart pounding, Harry gazed into the eerie glass. He thought fervently, not of using the stone. Harry had no desire for everlasting life or riches, but simply of finding it, to keep it safe from Voldemort. As Harry focused on this pure wish, the mirror's surface clouded, and then a new image came into view. Harry's reflection appeared, but it did something unexpected. The reflected Harry reached into his own pocket and pulled out a blood-red stone. In that instant, Harry felt a heavy weight drop into his actual pocket. The Philosopher's Stone had magically passed from the mirror into Harry's possession. He had proven himself the one worthy of retrieving it. Quirrell, on the other hand, looked into the mirror and saw only tantalizing illusions. Perhaps himself presenting the stone to Voldemort, a vision of his own desire, but he could not actually obtain it. Dumbledore's enchantment had worked perfectly. The mirror granted the stone to a selfless wish and denied it to a selfish one. After that harrowing night, the Philosopher's Stone was saved and later destroyed, and Voldemort was foiled, for a time. As for the Mirror of Erised, Dumbledore had no more use for it. True to his word, he removed the mirror to a new home, far from the prying eyes of students or the temptations of curious souls. During the remainder of Harry's years at Hogwarts, the mirror was never seen again. Perhaps Dumbledore hid it in the depths of the castle, or sealed it away where only he could find it. Some whisper that the mirror might have been destroyed to prevent any future tragedies. Others speculate it still lies somewhere in a locked room, covered by a cloth, silently waiting in the dark. Its reflective surface would be dull with dust by now. Yet one can imagine that if a lone wanderer were to stumble upon it and wipe the glass clean, the Mirror of Erised would spring to life once more, ready to lure a new heart with visions of impossible dreams. The danger of the Mirror of Erised lies not in any evil intent. The mirror itself is not cursed or sentient, but in the very human weakness of longing. It simply shows what you want most, and that is why it is so perilous. Looking into its depths is a bit like peering into your own soul. For a brief moment you might feel ecstasy at seeing your greatest dream come true, but when you realize it's all an illusion, that what you yearn for is forever out of reach, the mirror's gift turns cruel. The more the mirror shows you, the less satisfied you become with real life. In the words of Dumbledore, the happiest person on earth would look into the mirror and see nothing but themselves, exactly as they are, because they desire nothing more. But how many of us have hearts so content? Almost everyone who faces the mirror will see something they desperately crave, someone they've lost, something they lack, some ambition unfulfilled. The mirror lays it bare, and that image can enchant you, like a siren song. Wizards have indeed wasted away before this mirror, transfixed by visions of a future that will never come to pass. Others have gone mad, obsessing over whether the vision is possible and how they might obtain it. In the end, the Mirror of Erised neither gives knowledge nor truth, only a beautiful, consuming fantasy. Are there other magical objects with such a dark allure? Unfortunately, yes. The wizarding world is full of enchanted items that prey on desire. The Philosopher's Stone itself was coveted by those who feared death and thirsted for eternal life. The Resurrection Stone, a legendary artifact, tempted many with the promise of reuniting with departed loved ones. Yet those who used it found no peace, only a pale shadow of the dead and a deeper ache in their hearts. In a famous wizarding fairy tale, a young man uses that resurrection stone to summon the ghost of his lost beloved. She returns cold and suffering, and in the end, his desperation drives him to his own death. Such stories, whether in lore or in life, teach a grim lesson. Magic cannot truly bring back what is gone, or grant what is unattainable. Instead, it amplifies our longing into something even more dangerous. The Mirror of Erised is a prime example. It was perhaps created to make a wizard confront the deepest truth about themselves. But as Dumbledore knew, fixating on dreams, even innocent, deeply human dreams, can become a prison.